The story I'm about to tell you is the story that when people hear it, they have always told me, you should write a book. So, this story is the inspiration to the idea of sharing my story. I was 15 years old, and this is the story of my first arrest and my first Red Sox game. So I will tell you, my charges were disrupting a public assembly, disturbing the peace, and trespassing. What did I do? Well, my stepfather and my mom brought me and one of my sisters and two of our friends to our first Red Sox game. We were sitting up in the bleachers and behind the right fielder, and I was checking out Jay Buhner, who was the right fielder for the Mariners at the time. And I was checking out his bum and making jokes that I was going to marry him and he was going to know me. And so we had invited our two guy neighbors from our neighborhood, and one of them said, well, why don't you go introduce yourself right now? And ultimately, it became a $50 bet for me to go run on the field and introduce myself to Jay Buhner. So I don't remember all the details. I do remember at the seventh inning stretch telling my mom and my stepdad that I needed to use the bathroom. And I remember getting up to this gate. So there was a gate that separated the bleacher seats from the regular seats because the regular seats were more expensive, whatever. But this is before cell phones and pagers. I'm old and I was 15. So I told the guard I just had to go meet my mom. I was coming right back. And he said, you can't get through without, the right ticket. And I said, oh my God, my mom is going to be so worried. I told her I was going to meet her at the seventh inning stretch, and he said, all right, you're not lying. You're just going to go meet her and go back. Yes, sir. I'm not lying. So he let me go through. And it was like right there, I took a right and you could look down one of those tunnels and I could see straight to Jay Buhner. And there's only like a 3-foot wall that you have to jump to get onto the field. So I didn't want to get hit with a baseball. So I paid attention to what they did. And I noticed that they announced the player's name, the batter, and then the batter would take a couple of swings for show before he got up to the base. And so I was just going to go as soon as they announced the next batter's name. So now we're in the top of the 8th inning. The Red Sox are losing like 6-2. And they announced Jose Canseco. And I just started running. I just ran, I jumped. All I remember is looking down at my feet and I could hear the grass. And I look up and I heard that Jay could be like a real jerk to fans. So he looks over at me and then he looks back straight towards home plate. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to ignore me in front of all these people. But I get up to him and he jumps and he turns around and he goes, hey. And I go, hey, I just wanted to tell you, I think you have a really nice ass. And he said, thank you. Give me a hug. And I gave him a hug and he goes, now go get him. And I turn around and there's like 6 guards and police like charging at me. I went with them, no problem. I realized at that point I had a standing ovation. People in the stands were trying to give me money. At that time, I looked older than I was. I looked more like 18 or something, but I was only 15. They brought me out to the back street, which was Lansdowne Street, and I remember some guy was hitting on me, and I waved at him with my cuffs on, and they took me to a jail in a neighborhood we used to call the Combat Zone in Boston, and I guess at that time, my stepdad had elbowed my mom and said, look, some assholes running on the field. My mom's like, oh my God. That's our daughter. So, yeah, I was in jail. I was in a cell they call the cage. It was inside the office area because I was underage. So, I wasn't in a regular cell, and I didn't need to be bailed out. My parents had to come pick me up. I don't remember any of that. I remember being at court the next day and this probation officer was asking me all kinds of questions, like scary questions, like have I ever done this or that? And I had never been in trouble before. And I was just answering him. Then his phone rang and he laughed and he said, "Why didn't you tell me what you did?" And I said, "You didn't ask." And he said, me and my stepfather, who was, like I said, he had been a principal in the town, city we're from for like over 20 years, but he had always been a principal. Anyway, we ended up, I believe we went into Mayor Menino's office, and I didn't know who that guy was, but ultimately, him and my dad got along good, had a chuckle, and the deal was this. I was not to go to any more Red Sox games that year until the end of the world, after the World Series. And if I didn't get in any more trouble by the World Series, they would destroy my juvenile record. I did not get in any more trouble. The next day after I got home from court, there was a radio show, Opie and Anthony. I was on their show because they were bored. They said, if you have a story, call in. It was a station, WAAF in Boston. So that was really cool. They were really popular. I recorded that somewhere. It's on a cassette tape somewhere. I never found it. But, yeah. So my record was destroyed. I didn't get in any more trouble before I was 18. So that is the story of my first arrest, the story that inspired my storytelling. Guys, stay tuned. There is funny, there is scary, there is sad, there is tragic, there is inspirational. I have every kind of story you can imagine. Stay tuned.